Phil here from PRC Taping. Today we're going to be starting a new how-to series with Columbia Tools on how to properly run some of their automatic taping tools. Now, this is more or less for people just getting into automatic taping tools. You've never run the tools before, so we're going to get into that in this quick series for you. I'm going to first start off by talking about how a flat box operates, how it runs. There's many factors in mud consistency and all that, and I'm going to get more into that near the end of this video, but I'm just going to talk about how it operates. And what you do is you fill the flat box with mud with your mud pump, and then you set your desired setting. So it goes from 1 to 5, and what that does is that pushes your blade to a different crown. As you can see here, I don't know if you can see that in the video, it's set to open, so it's going to leave a lot of mud. So let's say I'm running a flat joint, you just want to fill that bevel on first coat. My ideal setting would be a 2 with a 10-inch box from the factory setting. So that's if you have a brand new blade, if you don't need to adjust the blades, straight from the factory setting 2. So basically fill it with mud, and as you push on the wall with the handle, mud is going to start coming out of the box. So basically like this, you're pushing against the wall and you're filling that bevel for your first coat, and I typically like to use a 10-inch Fat Boy inside track box for my first coat. So like I mentioned, I like using the 10-inch box for first coat. Sometimes I use an 8-inch Fat Boy inside track, but I try and stick to the 10-inch Fat Boy inside track. Then I go to the 12, and then I go to the 14. So again, there's no set rules. You can do 8, 10, 12. You can do 10, 12, 14 like I like to do, and you can even do just 10 and 12 like some guys do. But for most of my jobs, the custom homes that I do, I try and stick to the 10, 12, 14, and if there's any level 5 areas that need to be done, that'll just be done by hand. So like I mentioned, I have the 10-inch regular box here. You can get this in an inside track Fat Boy version, so it holds 40% more mud, which I like to do. That's less trips to the pump. But again, if you're a beginner and you're just getting this box works great. I use this one for years, this exact one. And again, these wheels here, they can ride against the corner bead, so you can actually fill corner bead with this as well. So for the beginners out there, I'm going to properly go over the mechanics of the handle and how it works and how you're going to use it on the wall. So basically, after you've filled the flat box, you're going to grab the flat box and you're going to hold the brake. And as you're walking up to the wall and you put it against the wall, you're going to let go of the brake. And once the box touches the wall, you don't want to hold that brake because you're going to be wearing out the blade if you do that. You want the box to do its own work. You got wheels on it. You're going to push this against the wall. Mud's going to come out. And as you're going to lift off the wall, that is when you grab the brake again. And then you're going to pull off the wall just like that. I suggest when you get a box, you play around with it first to get a sense of the settings and how much mud you want to leave in your bevels. And that also depends on how many coats you want to do. So there's many factors, so I just wanted to go over that quickly. Like I mentioned in previous videos, you want to oil your boxes. In this case, you're going to oil this gasket where it goes in and out of the box, just like this. You want it to be free of any debris, and you want that to be nice and oiled. Always make sure you do that before and after you use it. So mud consistency is super important when it comes to running a flat box. It will make or break your finish. Too thin, it'll make a mess. It'll shrink back too much. Too thick, it's gonna be hard to push, and it'll leave not a very nice finish. And again, remember, the more water you add to mud, the more it's gonna shrink back. And the whole point of what we're doing here is we're trying to fill the bevels, and we're trying to hide all the joints. So you don't want to add too much water to that. It's going to shrink back, and it kind of defeats the purpose of what you're doing. So you got to be careful with that. That being said, I use about 2.5 sponges of water to a full bucket of mud. It doesn't seem like a lot, but as you're mixing, you kind of get a feel for it too. You don't want it too thin, you don't want it too thick, like I mentioned. So you want to play around with that mud consistency. And again, we actually have a lot of videos on showing the actual bucket as we're mixing, and you can really tell in those videos. But again, depends on your region and what mud you're using. So I would say the most common thing I get asked is flat box settings. I'm going to get into that right now. And these settings that I tell you are going to be based off of a brand new flat box, not one that's been 2-3 years used. That's a little bit worn. The blade might be a little bit more worn than a brand new one. This is going to be the settings that I would use if I got a brand new box today. So again, the dial's right here. First coat, 10-inch box, I'm going to run it on 2. All of my flats are going to be run on 2. And then if I have a traditional butt joint, I'm going to run it open on each side of the tape. As that's setting up, I'm going to fill the middle and then incorporate it into the flats. For my second coat, I'm going to use the 12-inch box. I'm going to run it on setting 3, and these settings are getting tighter because I want to leave less and less mud as I go. So I'm going to run that on setting 3, the same mud consistency as the 10-inch box. same thing. All of my flats are gonna get setting 3, and on my butts, I'm gonna do setting 2 or 1, depending on the butt joint. So I'm also gonna tag the butt joints, go a little bit wider than the 10-inch, and I'm gonna fill the middle one more time. Now my final coat with my 14-inch box, I'm going all the way to setting 4 or 5, depending on the board and depending on the framing. If you go 5, sometimes this will overbow and you might get an edge, so we'll stick with 4. That's typically what I like to run it on. I did mention buttboard in this video, and I think it's important because a lot of people are starting to use it, and I just want to make sure you get your settings dialed in. All you do is run the same on your flats and your butts when you're using buttboard. So that's a quick little tutorial on how to properly run a flat box. And again, this is for people that are just starting out, never run a flat box before. It goes through the basics of how everything works and how everything runs and how you should have your mud and have your settings. So thanks for checking this video out. See you on the next one.